Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. It's this wonderful, fantastic day. And Billy, too bad about 114, but hang in there, okay? I want to begin today by doing a reading from the language of letting go. And I want to just mention the fact that we're going to start the concept of affirmations and self-parenting. This is where we really get into the concept of the inner child. Okay, I picked a reading from December 31st. It's New Year's Eve. This will make Billy feel cooler. Affirming the good. Fun begins fun. Love becomes love. Life becomes worth living. And we become grateful. It's from Beyond Codependency. Wait and expect good things for yourself and especially for your loved ones. When you wonder what is coming, tell yourself the best is coming. The very best life and love have to offer. The best God in His universe have to send. And open your hands to receive it. Claim it. It is yours. See the best in your mind. Envision what it will look like, what it will feel like. Focus until you can see it clearly. Let your whole being, body and soul, enter into and hold into the image for a moment. Then let it go. Come back here today, the present moment. Do not obsess. Do not become fearful. Become excited. Live today fully, expressing gratitude for all you have been, all you are, and especially all you will become. Wait and expect good things. Today, when I think about the year ahead, I will focus on the good that is coming. And I just changed that to when I focus on the day ahead, I can see all the good that is coming. I wanted to read that because part of what we're going to be doing today is kind of I'm moving into the concept of the inner child. And these two concepts today are really important to understand. In my book that I wrote on the inner child, learning to value your childhood, your history as your teacher, basically, what I'm talking about today is involved in chapter 7 and chapter 8. The book also, by the way, is available on audiobook and on Kindle on Amazon, if any of you are interested. So the concept is it's almost like a textbook for this inner child work. I want to kind of get some highlights tonight and get us into the spirit and the mood. So I mentioned to all of you the importance of gathering stuff from your childhood, even a photograph of yourself as a little child. If you have more than one photograph, that's fine too. So whatever works, try to connect with it. But in doing this work, you have to try to understand something. Last week, I mentioned the fact of, if you get the opportunity to sit down and write something called the fantasy family. This technique I'm going to share with you was actually shared with me a long time ago, believe it or not, by a very wonderful man who invited me as a priest to do a day of recollection for paraplegics. While I was doing the day of recollection, I met a gentleman there, a gentleman whose body was pretty much disfigured, who was in a wheelchair, and basically he learned a process called affirmations. In the process, he tried to teach me the concept of not staying where he is, but going into what I refer to as a fantasy world. In the fantasy world, he could vision himself totally different, and he could see the beauty inside of himself as a person. So what I learned as a result of that, and then I learned it also from my therapist, I learned the concept that in doing a fantasy family, you actually are, whether you realize it or not, identifying all of your own personal needs. And I'll show you what I mean. Try to the best of your ability. And this is part of learning how to get in touch with the child. See, children have imaginary friends. You all know about imaginary friends. They're wonderful. But to a child, an imaginary friend is not imaginary. to a child that's real. And a good friend of mine used to say all the time that children are connected to their imaginary friends because they still haven't been tainted by the world around them. And as a result, then they basically are still in touch with the other side. I'll never forget Dr. Dan Gottlieb, a good friend of mine. He basically taught me something. He said, he's a psychologist. He said one of his clients, a couple, said to him one day, they had just had their second child. Their first child was 4 years old, and their second child was just born. So their 4-year-old son said to their mom and dad, can I go and spend some special time with my little sister by myself? My mom and dad were a little nervous. They wanted to talk to a psychologist. Should we let him do this? You know, maybe he's jealous of his little sister or what? I said, go ahead, keep the door cracked and watch what he does. He went up to the little girl in the crib. He looked at her and said, I just wanted to come and spend time with you because I'm starting to forget what the angels are all about. It's almost like up until around age 4, he still had that energy and that gift of being in touch with the sacredness and the beauty of life ahead of time, beforehand. And I truly believe that in a very deep way, because I really believe that if we give ourselves permission, and this is hard to do, believe me, to let yourself go into the world of fantasy. You go into the world of identifying things you need as yourself. And I share this with you because I truly believe that we have a hard time doing this. Why? Because many of us will think we're being disloyal to our real family. We're being critical of them. So I tell people, just for about an hour, take your real family, pack them in a box, put them under the bed. Make believe you're a little boy or a little girl getting ready to be born. And if you had the power given to you by your higher power to create the perfect mother, the perfect father you'd like to have, you have to try this, because really what you're doing is you're identifying what I refer to as a fantasy family, but sometimes in doing this process, so many good things come out of it. For example, let me give you an example of this in my own life. When I did this therapy work way back in the 80s, and my therapist had me do this, first of all, I thought he was nuts. But I basically said, okay, I finally gave in and I finally did it. I found it amazing. I created the perfect mother. I wanted a mother that would give me space, give me distance, a mother that would not smother me, a mother that basically I'd be able to have this wonderful, intimate relationship with. I didn't have that with my mom. What I learned from it was, as an adult, I have a need. I learned it from my inner child. I have a need not to be around people who try to control me, manipulate me, or basically try to run my life for me. So I'm learning how to set boundaries today based on something I wrote and gave my little child permission, because I'm going to tell you the secret. As we do this inner child work, your little child deep down on the inside is going to speak to you and talk to you, because your little child has this energy called love. See, I don't know if you realize this or not, but deep down inside of all of us, we have two different parts. We have the adult and we have the child. The child is the part of us that wants to play. The child is part of us that smiles. The child is inside of us is spontaneous, is open. It's like the Snoopy inside of us. It's free. And as a result, then it has this energy. The adult in us is logical, is organized, gets things done, is functional, and we need both in the course of our life. The problem is many of us as codependents don't really want to get in touch with that little child because we feel like we'll be out of control. God forbid that we lose control. God forbid that we face our fears. God forbid that we feel. See, a little child knows how to love life and celebrate life. As an adult, we have to learn something called balance. So we have to learn how to get our adult to speak to our child. And as we do self-parenting work, I'll be teaching that to you. Basically, we have three components. We have the higher power, the divine presence, something greater than ourselves. We have the higher parent, which is all of us as an adult. And then we have the child. You see, every little child wants to be parented. So there are many things you never probably have experienced in your childhood that you want to experience. That's why I love that bumper sticker on, when it came out years ago. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. So basically, a lot of things we didn't get done, we can get them done through a process called the surrogate. I'll give you examples of this. As part of my fantasy family, I wanted a dad that would take me to a ball game, play catch with me, do all the things that daddies normally do with their kids. But my father came from the old country, didn't understand a lot of this. It really wasn't his world. And what I'm very grateful for is my uncle, who was almost like a surrogate dad to me as a child, helped me to experience some of the things my father couldn't give me. It's something we all have to learn, because so many times we expect things from people who cannot give us those things. We have to learn how to go someplace else and get them met, and that's okay. Because sometimes we get caught up in expectations and realize the fact that we have to learn how to put our big boy and big girl pants on and be able to realize the fact I need help. I need people to guide me. I read my uncle because my uncle actually did the things my father couldn't do. He took me to the World Series in 1950 when the Yankees played the Phillies. And I had the privilege of being at one of the games. And basically, I was 10 years old. My uncle took me. Tickets were cheaper then, they were $12. But basically, I went to the game. I got to see two beautiful pitchers, Rick Raschi, Robin Roberts, and I actually got to see Joe DiMaggio hit a home run to win the game. That's something I'll never be able to say in my lifetime. And that's why I feel that. And I can remember every inning of that game as a little kid. See, children, when they experience their fantasy, can actually go into it, and it becomes a big part of their life and their journey. There are times when I lay on my bed or I wake up or sit in my recliner and I think back to the memories of that game, that simple game, just to be able to be there. It's the little things that bring you back. It's those things that connect us. And so I'm learning over and over again, I can get my needs met, but I have to be able to get them met from people that are healthy to meet them, or also open to meet them. So I need people in my life, like we all do. We're not islands. We can't function by ourselves. I don't want to. So I have to realize over and over again, one of the dangers of codependency is expectations. I expect people to be what I want them to be. What I'm trying to do is get my needs fulfilled in somebody else. And in reality, it's my responsibility. That's why this process is so beautiful. But take it into your adult life. You use the exact same fantasy process. I remember a young couple whose marriage I was going to perform. I was getting ready to perform. And normally I got together with them and they came to see me one day and they said, Vince, we're getting ready for our marriage, but we have a problem. I said, what's the matter? Well, our two families are in conflict. I said, usually when I do weddings, that's usually one of the things I hear a lot. But anyway, they said, my parents want this, and our parents want that. We're going back and forth. We want something else. So we have this conflict going on in the family. We don't want to have alcohol or anything there. They want it there. There's all these things back and forth. I stopped them. I said, stop. I love doing this. I said, take this yellow pad, go into another room, and forget your parents exist. I want you to create on paper your fantasy wedding. What you want. It's your wedding. They said, well, what about don't worry about your parents. Leave your parents here with me. Go in the other room. Create on paper the fantasy wedding that you want. 45 minutes later, they came back with the yellow pad, handed it to me. They had written out their fantasy wedding, and they looked at me and said, well, it's nice. We'd love to have that. I said, well, guess what? That's what you're having. For real? I said, yep, it's your wedding. These are your needs. Well, the bottom line was the two families were not all that happy, but they created this wedding. I worked with them. We did the ceremony based around the philosophy of the 12 steps. And then for the reception, I just love this. Instead of doing all that traditional stuff you do at a wedding reception, the two of them, since they're both in NA, shared their recovery stories. They turned the reception into a meeting. They shared their stories. They had no alcohol. Everybody there was thrilled. And their parents afterwards were crying and said, it was so beautiful. It was unbelievable. You see, we learned something in life, that sometimes when you feel stuck and you feel trapped, go talk to your little kid. See, children know what it's all about. And so doing the fantasy concept a lot of times opens up doors. That's why I share it with you. Now I'll share another story, and people have done this, and one guy who was the 12 o'clock lecture actually wrote me afterwards and said, wow, Vince, you're telling a story that happened to me. When I was connected with ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, back in the late 80s and the 90s, when it was a lot more big than it is now, but it's still there. I had a lady friend of mine who I've known for a long time, who's been in the program, called me up one day and she said, Vince, I'm going to ask you a big favor. She said, I'm getting married and I don't want to have my father at my wedding. My father came to my sister's wedding and just about destroyed it. He got drunk. It was horrible. I made a decision. He's not coming to my wedding. Will you be my surrogate dad? I learned in the program to get my needs met and to ask people. So I said, well, I thought about it for a while and I said, this should be interesting. So I got dressed up in a tuxedo, which I don't wear too often. I got to walk her down the aisle, give her away. I got to sit with her mother. And then at the reception, I got to dance with her to Daddy's Little Girl. It was a beautiful concept, not only for her, but for me. Because I don't know if I ever experienced this in my own lifetime. So it's a concept, although thank God I did experience it with my youngest stepdaughter. The beautiful concept is you never know when somebody asks you or you connect with something in a surrogate way. So we call this principle and this concept self-parenting. And we're going to learn in the program how to parent each other. Before we can do that, we have to learn the value of affirmations. They go together. Why? We don't want anybody doing family of origin work or inner child work unless they are doing it with a positive attitude. See, this is about healing. It's about learning. It's about growing. It's not about finding out what's wrong. See, we've been programmed for a long period of time to walk around and say, you know, I had a lousy childhood. This was terrible. That was terrible. They did. And it's all normal feelings. I understand that. But I have to get to a point where I can identify my feelings, release the negativity, and then look at the other side. That's where the higher parent comes into play. So I can actually help my little child to learn positive lessons from what happened. But in order to do that, I have to learn something. I have to learn how to rethink, and I use a different term, how to brainwash myself positively. A lot of us have gotten negative messages. As a child growing up, I can still relate. Don't speak. Little kids should be seen and not talked to. Keep your mouth shut. You don't know anything. All those wonderful phrases. What I'm learning is, guess what? My little child, my little boy has a voice. And so we're going to learn in doing inner child work how to give your child a voice. Yes, you may have children. I'm talking about the child within you, the energy of love within you. And in order to give that child a voice, I got to be able to approach it positively and realize the fact that I have to be able to restructure my thinking process. There's different ways of doing this. One of it is to write your own affirmations. You can take some simple words, you know, I'll just give you a couple samples. Things like, I feel safe. I love myself. I am special. I am beautiful. I am willing to change. I am willing to grow. I am willing to learn. I am open to new things. I am open to new directions. These are all positive affirmations, but how they work is you got to repeat them over and over and over again and just keep doing them. And after a while, they become normal to you. We call this the power of positive thinking. Open up new doors and new directions. Open up different areas of your life to begin to look at life with positive attitudes and not with negative attitudes. That's why whatever we go through in life, I don't care what it was, every one of your experiences, even the most traumatic, the most negative, they're experiences you went through so that hopefully in time, you could learn from them and grow from them and allow them to become your teachers. I know today, my parents came into my life to be my first teachers. Were they dysfunctional? They won awards. Totally amazing. Just like many of yours won awards. And many of us won awards. So it's interesting when you come down to it. Because guess what? If you have children, when they go to therapy, they're going to talk about you. That's how they're supposed to do it. See how it works, Pat? It's powerful that way. And so we have to realize the fact that's how the system is supposed to work. So they're going to learn from what you experienced. And most of us have to be able to go back into that history and see it as a teachable moment. And one of the beautiful things this did for me, it helped me even to go back into the history of my parents, to look at their family and their background. And I'll be honest with you, when I did a lot of this work and I looked at their history, I don't think I could have did the stuff that they did or survived the stuff that they survived. You know, I told stories about this before, but I realized my mom went through a lot. And so when I was born, guess what? I'm not going to go through anything. It was a reaction she had from her childhood. But I realized today, I learned two beautiful things from my mom. Yes, she put me away when I was 14 years old in the seminary for safekeeping. I know that. You know, I still joke about it. I say she put me in protective custody. But the bottom line is, I realized something. She gave me a gift. Now, it took me a lot of years of being angry at her, of blaming her. It took me a lot of years to finally be able to go back and look and give my little boy a voice and get rid of my negative stuff and begin to realize the fact that this beautiful, beautiful little boy was given a gift by my mom. That gift was, if she didn't put me away when I was 14, I would have never grown up. I had, for the first time in my life, stand on my own 2 feet, learn how to become responsible, how to be able to make decisions, and it helped me tremendously in the rest of my life. But see, we have to go through the fire to get to the other side. That's because we're strange people as human beings. We're human. That's why they call us humans, because we go through things that way. Because we're always trying to figure life out instead of living life. And that's why little children teach us to live life. And they are great teachers and powerful teachers. That's why I try to tell people, write some affirmations of your own. Learn them. One of the best ways of doing affirmations, believe it or not. And again, my wife and I attended the We Can Do It conference years ago in Florida. It's run by the Hay Institute. Louise Hay, she's no longer with us, but it's beautiful programs. You know, and I love so much about it because we learned this process of affirmations. And affirmations teach us about our body, our mind, our spirit. And I really believe that we can learn to think positively and live positively. Our energy comes up, we feel better, our body actually heals. This is something nothing new, by the way. The Indians taught this years ago. And yet, what do? We became civilized, whatever that means. But the bottom line is, we're learning over and over again how to get back to roots and foundations. And so affirmations means I got to be able to look at the positive stuff inside of me, the beauty inside of me, the strength in me. My father's history, the exact same thing. How would you like to be in the First World War and the insanity of that war? Where my father basically was in a cavalry where they still had the old days of charging each other. And then to be put on a boat, to be sent to a place called America. My mother's name tagged on him because their marriage was arranged. Aren't too many of us will go through that. And then basically, you know, they have to work his way. Everything he did in his life. He taught me strength. He taught me not to be afraid of hard work. He taught me not to be afraid to take risks and do things. My mother taught me strength too. She was I used to say the term, she was a tough old one, man. She was tough. You know, she could survive almost anything. It's amazing. What I learned from her was, you know, you have enough strength, enough prayer, you can get through almost anything. My mother had her ways. Yes, she did. One of my funniest stories about my mom, always loved telling it, was I was off one weekend as a priest, and I was home. And so my mom has a tradition on Sunday morning. She went to the 7:30 Mass every Sunday morning. The Mass was in Italian at Mount Carmel Church. I told my mom, well, it's snowing out, Mom. It's bad out. How about if I just say Mass for you at home? She smiled. So I said Mass at home. As soon as I was done, she put her coat on. I said, where you going, Mom? I'm going to church. I said, we just had church. No, that's not church. I'm going to church. Through the snowstorm and everything, she went to that church. She probably ended up maybe by herself there, who knows? But that was her day. She went. Because what we did in the house wasn't church. It was nice, but it wasn't church. And so I'm learning over and over again, you know, you learn from the old, how they looked at life, how they dealt with life. You learn lessons from it, you grow from it. So doing affirmation means to be able to affirm yourself. But Louise Hay, I learned something else. Believe it or not, the 20, 25 minutes prior to you going to sleep at night is a very sacred time. Getting ready to close your eyes, getting ready to say goodbye to the world. You need to put positive stuff inside of you before you go to bed. Shut the damn TV off. Don't watch the news before you go to bed. You shall take the damn news to bed with you. You have to learn to affirm. One of the beautiful things that I'm doing affirmation work is you can actually, and I have to change my terminology now, I'm in the more modern generation, Leslie. You can download, I used to say tapes, then I used to say CDs. Now, for Pat's sake, I got to say download. I can download this stuff now. You can download what I call affirmation messages that you can listen to if you go to bed at night. We have so many contraptions now, you can plug them right in. But years ago, they had a technique, and I learned this also. It's a term called subliminal. Years ago, I don't know if this goes way back to the late 50s, early 60s. They used to do something which, by the way, today is illegal, but they did it back then. They would use music to sell products. See, subliminal means that on the outside, you only hear with your ears. You hear the music, but they have dubbed underneath messages. So back in those days, you went into the supermarket. They had beautiful music playing in the supermarket. They were selling you products. You didn't even know it. They were brainwashing you to buy something. They pick a product. I just threw this term out. It says, buy Blocto chewing gum. So all the time you're shopping, you're hearing Blocto chewing gum being put in your head. You get to the checkout aisle, and you have a whole package of Blocto chewing gum. You don't even know what it is. You're buying it. They literally were doing is they're brainwashing you and selling certain products. Now, again, that went and it became illegal, and I'd be surprised if they still do it today. Who knows what goes on today? But the bottom line is they took that principle and brought it into the recovery world. And now you can actually purchase, you can download, you don't have to purchase them anymore. But if you go to hayhouse.com, which is the clearinghouse for Hay House material, you can actually download a lot of these subliminal affirmations, and they give you a message. They tell you what they are. They might tell you for good self-esteem, for good study habits, they have them, for good different areas. You know, it's a beautiful part about it. And Carol's inner child just arrived. But the bottom line is, it's all these beautiful messages, which are so powerful and so beautiful. You have to learn to get in touch with them. And so I really believe in the concept of restructuring and actually using the process to brainwash yourself in a positive way. So you begin to see all the beauty and all the strength that's deep down inside of every one of us. See, we have a little child inside of us, and that little child is still in touch with the other side, is still in touch with the angels. You'll be able to get in touch with it. And so when we do self-parenting and we do affirmations, the two go together, because before we start in family of origin work we'll be doing next week, I'll give you a kind of a technique to prepare for it. Again, a lot of this stuff is found in the book, a lot more detail than what I'm saying here. And it's a process we have to go through. I'll also mention another book too. It's called The 12 Steps of Self-Parenting. You can pick it up on Amazon for, I think I got last one I got was like $6. But it really is The 12 Steps of Self-Parenting, which years ago was used by most of the ACOA programs, but other books are used now. So it's a different concept of it. But the beautiful thing about it is, I'd like you to try something. If you go to the website on Vince's Corner, at the bottom we have, I think it says alternate resources. Okay, something like that.
Additional resources.
Additional resources, okay.
There's a little block right on the top of Vince's Corner.
It says additional resources. In that additional resources, you're going to find a set of 7 questions. I recommend that you download them, get these 7 questions, and what the purpose of these questions are to give you an insight into your childhood, to get us ready for what we're going to be doing next week. Let's just go over them quickly. We're talking about ages 0 to 10, and we talk about what is your perception of your parents when you were a child? What was your perception of your grandparents? What is your perception of your neighborhood, your culture, the environment you grew up in? What kind of effect did it have on you? Like South Philadelphia and Gino, what he went through. But the bottom line is, what is your perception of your religious upbringing? Your perception of your childhood peers? What is your perception of yourself as a child? See, everything's about perception. We perceive stuff that it's almost like it becomes a part of us. You know, growing up in certain neighborhoods, certain ways of life become part of you. It's amazing when you come right down to it. And so the concept is, how does your childhood affect your life and relationships? In so many different ways. And so we do recommend you get a copy of these and just start thinking about some of this stuff. A little more detail about it. We'll talk more about it next week on how to put this stuff into practice. But it's also, this part is in chapter 9 of the book. It brings all this stuff out in connection with it. What I'm learning over and over again, the best way of doing this work, and I highly recommend it, is in getting maybe another 2 or 3 people together that you feel close to, and to do this work together as a group. And just take your time. You know, a particular lady who was on the earlier lecture, her husband and a bunch of 5 other men got involved and did this process, and they met every Monday night at Starting Point and went through this whole process. And it took them a whole year to get through it. But they built this bond with each other as they did it and connected with each other, which is really important. You know, this is one of the things I share, and I love talking about it because I know how much this stuff has changed my life. I like my little kid. I like having fun, you know, and I need playmates, people to have fun with, have a good time with. And we have to learn something which is so important in doing inner child work. We have to learn balance. We have to learn to meet both sides of ourselves and balance them out. And that's why whatever happened in your life, we'll talk more about this next week, whatever happened in your life negatively can become a teachable moment. If we're able to go through a healing and be able to learn and grow from our scars, from the things we go through in life. And everything we've gone through is just part of our personal growth, part of our learning, part of our development. So my prayer tonight is that we open our hearts and open our minds to this concept of affirmations, to affirm positive things in our life, and to begin the process of looking at our own history, and not to look at it negatively, to look at it positively, to embrace it, to accept it, to learn from it, to grow from it. We're not accidents, we're not mistakes. All of us are exactly who we are supposed to be. And we also have the history and the background of our life. Try to look at everything positively and grow from it. Everybody comes into your life, you didn't meet them. You met them for a purpose. What lessons can you learn from them? Even your relationships. They're teachable moments if we can learn and grow and go through a healing process with them all. And so my prayer tonight is that we are able to open our hearts and open our minds to go through a process of growing. So let us pray. God, we come before you tonight, the God of our understanding, our higher power, our divine presence. Open our hearts and open our minds. Help us to become the people that we are. Help us to learn the importance of looking back into our history of being able to learn and grow from the examples of the past, to realize that everything in life is about being able to learn. Even our losses, the things that we go through, they're part of our journey. Yes, they're painful, and yes, we have to struggle through them sometimes, but that's okay. With love, with kindness, and with your help and your guidance, knowing that the lessons are coming, teach us to become better people, open up our doors and our hearts and our minds to heal, to grow, and to learn. Because that's what we need in the course of our journey, the process of healing and the process of growth. So we pray for your help, we pray for your guidance, we pray for your direction as we embark on this journey of going to meet that beautiful little child that's inside of us. We ask you to help us and guide us and be with us in all that we do. We ask this and we pray this in your name. Amen.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.